I have some goals when it comes to collecting retro games going into 2026. And that's kind of a wild thing to say out loud when you consider every life necessity has become exponentially more expensive than it ever has been. Food, shelter, transportation, you name it, everything is through the roof right now. So how can I justify going out of my way to spend money I don't need to be spending on things that I probably don't need to be owning, such as a giant pile of retro games? Well, that's not really the plan this year, and that's what I want to talk about, how I'm going to be saving some money on my collecting hobbies this year, and hopefully you'll pick up a tip or two and find some ways to save some money on your favorite hobbies as well. I'm also going to be talking about my other goals outside of simply collecting games this year, because it's not really about just buying as much as possible. There's also a whole side of this I don't really get to talk about a lot, and that is how I'm going to enjoy my collection as well. And that is something I'm going to try and do a lot more intentionally this year. If you're new here, by the way, this is the Sticker Shock Podcast. I'm Dan, and we talk about collecting things. Usually I have a guest, but this time I'm going to be doing a solo episode because there's a whole bunch of more personal stuff I just wanted to get into today. And that's what we're going to do. So in order to go into some of the things I've learned about how to save money and collect retro games and things like that, we need to start a little bit earlier in the year, just a couple months ago, when YouTube pushes me this channel, Memory Card. They have 29,000 subscribers, and he's only got 3 videos right now, and they're all about building a retro game collection with $0. Specifically, he is building a collection of PS2 games with no money. And this was something I was immediately taken with. The YouTube algorithm strikes again. It did a great job here. And the main way that he explores doing this is through thrifting different games, picking up games that he doesn't necessarily want to add to his collection for the purpose of flipping them and selling them on eBay. I really want you to go watch. I'm going to have it linked down below. I really want you to go watch this. It's just so cool. But he's learned a whole bunch of things already about what it takes to build this collection without having to actually spend money. Just in these 3 videos, I can tell you that he's been pretty successful. He's doing a really good job of keeping track of the money he's spent and the money he's earned. And in the last episode, his remaining balance, starting from $0, was $178.44, which is really cool. When you think about how many games you can buy with that amount of money, which I'll show you a couple of examples here soon, that's not a bad start to a collection. But of course, there's a lot of different factors that kind of go into this. This is an individual who is doing a lot of different things besides just picking up a game at Goodwill and selling it on eBay. One of the things he learns in the series is that he can make money too off of selling the consoles. And sometimes the consoles come in and they're broken, so he gets them for a really good deal and he fixes those consoles. Now, already we're entering territory where I think a lot of people would kind of like recoil and go, well, I don't want to do that. I don't feel like I'm capable of doing that. This is obviously somebody who is going to have a lot of patience for trying to get this done. And the reason this individual is so like on top of things is because that YouTube channel we're just looking at isn't even their first one. They have an entirely different channel called Dualex that they've had for a lot longer, 115 videos, almost 1 million subscribers. And this channel is all about, renovating houses and vans and things like that. So this is somebody who naturally has like an affinity for fixing things, which makes sense. So yes, he's going to buy old consoles and fix them up. And that is a skill set that a lot of people don't have. And I also felt that way at one point. But the reason this series that he's doing on his other channel is so inspiring to me is because I think it was 2025, maybe it started in 2024, I got into another new hobby, and that was fixing up old Game Boys. This is my childhood Game Boy, but in a new shell with a new fancy IPS screen. I've showed this off before, and it is something I'm very proud of. I found some YouTube videos of people rebuilding these and thought, wow, that looks a lot easier than I thought it would be. I can do that. And this is teaching me all kinds of new skills, not just like playing with adult Legos and reshelling, motherboards into plastic shells, but also as I've started to explore the more advanced modifications you can do to a Game Boy, I have learned to solder, something I never thought I would do. I never thought I would pick up a soldering iron. I always I knew people who could do that, but I'm like, that looks dangerous. That looks scary. That looks hard. And when I watch Memory Card go through and like buy an old console and successfully fix it and sell it for like this really high margin, I'm like, that is awesome. And I think I could do that. Now, fixing old PlayStations isn't like the only tip I have for somebody who's trying to save money and like get into a collecting hobby, but I think it's like a good place to start because what I wanted to like explore today was the idea that you could explore a hobby like collecting retro games while also picking up a new hobby along the way. And that new hobby could be something that becomes profitable to you. Take Pokemon cards, for example. You could be somebody who wants to buy like the latest, greatest sets, but you're just having a lot of trouble getting into it. Maybe you end up starting up a YouTube channel because the way you organize your cards is something you're very proud of. And you're like, actually, I have a few tips I could share on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube that showcase how I manage my collection of cards. And so you spin up one of these channels and it actually gets some views. And maybe it gets enough views to where it gets monetized. I'm not going to get anyone's hopes up or anything, but that's just like another out of the box example of like how you could start to get into different hobbies without necessarily going and just paying money out of pocket constantly. Doing things to try and like supplement your hobby. You're basically creating like a hobby income for yourself is one way to save a lot of money. But I know that's going to be for the more like industrious entrepreneurial types out there, and that's not going to be for everybody. So I did learn something else from watching the memory card videos that I wanted to explore today. And this was something that was like a little more eye-opening to me. It gets into goals behind collecting and why I think I'm going to be able to spend a lot less this year and get a lot more out of my collection. So Duelex is specifically collecting PS2 games. Now, I used to play PS2. I had a PS2 growing up, and only recently have I started to realize that like there's a whole bunch of games in that generation that I either played a little bit, never beat, or never got to try. And I was kind of reminded of it when I was watching these videos. And the PS2 side of retro collecting was kind of eye-opening to me because I've been trying to collect things like old Pokemon games, not realizing the difference out there when it comes to what it costs to get a PS2 game versus a Nintendo DS game. So for audio listeners, I'm showing it on the screen now, but this is a screenshot I took when I was on eBay looking for just like a popular PS2 title. So this is God of War. Some copies here are God of War 2, I think. And the prices range from like $40 to $10, what we're looking at right now. It is wild how much these games cost in 2025, almost 2026. And the reason it's wild is because I'm so used to seeing something like this, where it is, here is Pokemon Black version, for example, one of the games I would like to add to my collection, $95, $98, $100. And all of these don't have boxes. One of them has the box for $119. So just the tiny little DS cartridge of Pokemon Black and White is going for about $100 or more. And that is why, like, one of the ways I'm going to be saving money this year is focusing specifically on PS2. Because one, I already did spend quite a bit on older Pokemon titles already, but two, there is so much that I never got to play that I'm really, really excited to dig into. I've already started rebuilding this part of my collection too. Some of my earlier pickups in 2025 were the original Ratchet and Clank. This year I played my first Ratchet and Clank game. I'm like, oh, I want to go back and try that. I also picked up, of course, Jak and Daxter. This is one I've never played, but I've heard good things. I've seen enough of it to know I'm going to enjoy it. And one game I did play, but only like at friends' houses growing up and stuff, was Burnout 3 Takedown. This game is so ridiculously silly and fun, and I've already started playing it. It's so cool. And importantly, none of those games that I just talked about costs, I think, anything more than maybe $40 at most. I can't remember. I'm sure I could pull up my history and like find them, but I think the most I would have spent on any one of those games would be like 40, which is still a lot. That's still like, you could buy some new games for $40. But I think I also got a handful of games for like 20, 25. And that's not really that bad when you consider how, old these are. They're not in print anymore. And the coolest thing is a lot of these games, and I'm kind of doing this intentionally, they come in their cases, and some of them even have their manuals still. And I figure if you're going to go out of your way to collect something and add it to your shelf and have some pride in it, you might as well get like the nicest version of that thing you can find. So I'm more susceptible, I guess, with that mentality of spending a little bit more than you probably could if you were willing to buy a game that just had like a disc and nothing else. In fact, this is another thing that Duelex points out in his videos, where he's able to offload some of the games he has that he no longer has the case for, or he finds a game that doesn't have a case and he sells the disc only in like a bundle with some of the other stuff he's selling. And, he still makes some money off of that. There are people willing to buy just the disc, but he is like me trying to get his games to be like complete or as complete as possible. But there's a market for everybody and everything, and that's one of my other tips too, is if you don't really care about the case of the game, like you're like, I'm going to put my discs in like a little sleeve binder thing anyway, they'll be fine, then you could save quite a bit of money just buying the cartridge or just buying the disc. But the other savings advice that I have comes in the form of how I'm going to enjoy my games going into 2026, which is the other part of today's podcast I really wanted to get into, because that is the number one thing I think that's going to keep me from spending all of my money. But one of the things I was thinking about for 2025 was how many games did I beat? And I don't mean finish. I mean, how many games did I start and then finish in the year 2025? And I didn't go through like an extensive search through my libraries and things like that, but I can think off the top of my head of 3 games, only 3 games that I started and completed in 2025. They are Donkey Kong Bonanza, Pokemon Legends ZA, not including the DLC, which I've only just started, and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which was the first Ratchet and Clank game I played, I mentioned a little while ago. And I'm proud of myself for having beaten some games, because backlog does not begin to describe the amount of games that I have bought and never played. It is a problem, mostly thanks to Steam sales. We talked about this in the last episode with Kato, just the sheer amount of Steam games that I have. And I'm starting to see myself doing this again with physical games as I'm picking up retro games. And that is why my collection goals for 2026 are very, very, very modest. So for 2026, I'm going to continue focusing on PS2. And the games I would like to pick up is the first God of War. I've never played any God of War game somehow. And I woke up one day and realized that and thought this would be something I think I should add to my collection. There's a lot of God of War games, so I'm just going to buy the first one, see how I like it. I want to get Need for Speed Underground 2, which is something I used to own, and I think I traded it in, and I really, really enjoyed playing that one. Spider-Man 2 is one that gets a lot of praise as like a retro Spider-Man game. I think I played it growing up at like friends' houses, but never really got to dig in myself. I want to get Sly Cooper 1 and 2. Both, one, because I just never played any of them, but I want to get both titles because they just look really fun, and I've heard that 2 builds on 1 in a really good way. I know there's a third one people like as well, but we'll see if I like those 2. And then Tony Hawk's Underground is one I want to get because I did not have this game growing up. I really, really wanted it and just never got around to it. But I did play it at friends' houses, and it was the first Tony Hawk game I remember that you could like get off the skateboard and run around and do these missions. It was more like open world. I hope I'm remembering the game right. If you've played it and I'm completely wrong, let me know. But that's one I remember just really fondly. And then The Simpsons Hit and Run, which is a game I've played. I think I had it at one time for like GameCube. It's just one I'd like to get again because it's not in my physical collection anymore. And honestly, that's it. I already picked up some PS2 games earlier in the year that I want. I'm not trying to get a collection of every single PS2 game that ever existed. That's not the kind of collector I really am with this stuff. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is intentionally pick games that I think I would enjoy, or games that I know I would enjoy because I played them in the past, and games that I have an actual chance to go back and actually play. But you might be thinking, like, why buy any games if your backlog is as big as you say it is? And that's a fair question. So one of the other goals I have for myself is to try and beat more than 3 games in 2026. I probably beat a couple more, I don't remember, but ultimately what I would like to do is beat a game a month in 2026, which for me would be a lot. just a lot. But I think I can do it because of like the habits I'm trying to form. I mentioned earlier, spending less time on my phone. Like there's a lot of time wasted. I'm not managing my time very well. And I think when I start managing my time better and leave time for just, playing a game or something, I feel better. So I'm going to try to do that. We'll see. I might keep you updated on my progress throughout the year of which game I beat and how long it took. But I would like to see if I can beat 1 game per month. I mean like start a game and see it through to the end. And I think what that would do is help me to start chewing through like my backlog of physical games, which is, I would say, the most important thing. Like the physical games are the things that I'm like really like going out of my way for, and not playing those feels like an absolute shame. But my point for everybody else listening to this would be to set goals for yourself that feel realistic. Why do you want to collect these games in the first place? Maybe you are the kind of person who's trying to get every PS2 game that's ever been printed on a disc. There are collectors out there like that. I hope to have some of them on the show at some point, and it's always very impressive to see what they've accomplished. No shame in that at all. But if that's what you're trying to do, then, I would just be, if money is a concern, be like, careful about what you're picking up and really do your research. If you're someone who's a little more adventurous than I am and you actually want to go out to places where there's like events, it happens all the time where there's like retro game expos where local vendors come in and sell games for not ridiculous eBay prices. That happens a lot. But if you're more like I am and you are just trying to enjoy some retro titles and you want to own the physical copies of them, then I only picked 7 games that I want to buy this year. That's less than one a month. And while I'm slowly trying to find the best deals on those games and get them, throughout the year, I'm going to be playing other games that I've already bought to try and beat those as part of my other goal for 2026, which is to beat 12 games. And then another part of this for me is how I plan on playing these games, because I have a lot of options at my disposal and I've kind of overwhelmed myself because earlier, remember when I mentioned, rebuilding Game Boys and stuff? Well, it didn't stop there. There were plenty of videos that YouTube was happy to recommend to me about rebuilding other consoles. So I went and picked up a PS2 and I, did some modifications to that, which was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, even with the HDMI mod I did and stuff, it still looks like a PS2 and it's not like the most fun to play on. Also, the console I got was kind of old smelling. Like when you turned it on, it smells like an attic. It's just really bad. I'm glad I got the experience of modding this thing. I'm glad I have it. But playing on it is not like the most enjoyable experience. So how I'm going about playing my stack of PS2 games that I have here, some of these I've already played, but some of the ones I've more recently picked up, is I'm actually taking the games, I am dumping them myself, and then taking the digital copy of that game and playing it on modern hardware. This is like part of the hobby that I really, really enjoy. I love playing a retro game, but I also love all the technology that emulation has to offer with the upscaling, the better performance, and getting to play on just about any device you can imagine. And because I went out of my way to buy a physical PS2, I was able to get the BIOS files from that console that makes the PS2 emulator work in the first place. So everything as above board as I can make it. I still think this might be like a legal gray area. I don't really know, but listen, this is how I'm doing it, okay? And I really, really love the performance I've managed to get out of some of these older games. So one of the other things I would like to add to my gaming collection this year, and I don't think I'm going to do it just yet, I can't quite justify the purchase yet, is I want to add the AYN Thor. If you haven't seen this before, I'll put it on the screen now. This device is a clamshell handheld, just like the 3DS, but it runs an Android operating system and you can play anything on it. You can play pretty much every generation of console on this. Like, it has that much power all the way up to, I think, through the Nintendo Switch, if you're someone who's going to go that route. And I mean, that's a lot of power. That's a lot you can do with this. The coolest thing about this is even if you're not playing dual screen games, the other screen can be used to have like a helpful guide or something on it while you play through the game on the top screen. And for me, that's pretty important because if I hope to beat 12 games, some of them are probably going to require guides. And those old school games did not mind really challenging puzzles, and I don't mind looking at a guide to solve those when I get stumped. So the AYN Thor is something that I would love to add to my collection. And the version I want, the Pro 12 with 256 gigabytes, is $350 right now. Apparently that's like a $10 discount or something. And again, I can't justify this right now because I have a Steam Deck, which also has a lot of power, and it also emulates most of my games just fine. So I'm kind of just using that for the moment. But I gotta say, the battery life on it is not good. It's a heavier device. I like to lay in bed and play my games on handhelds, and like my arms get tired. And I know these are like first world problems I'm just kind of moaning and groaning about, but it's not enough. Like, those aren't enough to like justify the AYN Thor. But if I start to go through my back catalog of like 3DS games and DS games, then it might become a little more, interesting, because playing those games on the Steam Deck, it's just not fun. It's not the same. You can do it, but the control layout is the Xbox control layout, whereas the AYN Thor has the Nintendo controller layout. And the overall just like ability to have an actual dual screen handheld, but with way more power than the 3DS or 2DS is very, very enticing to me. Right now, like, hardware for actual like computers and things like that, RAM prices, all that stuff is just through the roof because of this like AI wave that's taking over the entire tech industry. So part of me is like, oh, I should probably buy one now before it gets more expensive. But also I'm trying to have some self-control, but that is, if I do anything in 2026 when it comes to like a big purchase for my collection, that's probably going to be what it is, but I'm still like kind of thinking about it. The other reason I'm really enjoying playing retro games like through an emulator is because of a place that I've just started going to a lot more recently called Retro Achievements. This takes just a slew of retro games, probably any you can think of. It's a community driven project where people are creating achievements for these games, and as long as you play these games through like the proper emulators and stuff, these achievements will pop up just like modern games. And so I did talk about playing Pokemon Gold earlier, and I've started to collect achievements for Pokemon Gold through Retro Achievements, and that has been really, really fun. It's taken the game and made it feel like it has even more purpose, right? Like, I've played Pokemon Gold before. I don't know why I went back to it, probably because I have it and I took the time to dump it, so I might as well play it. And starting it over again has been interesting, but like getting achievements for like beating the first gym, or, you know, finding a certain Pokemon or doing a certain trade has just made it like 10 times more fun. So I guess I promised some money saving tips for 2026, and I've given some here, but they've been scattered about. So to sum all this up, being industrious and entrepreneurial can save you and make you some money that you can put towards building your collection. If you're somebody who's going to repair consoles and sell them, I'd say that's like a net positive. You're taking something old and broken, instead of letting it go into a landfill or collect dust in someone's closet, you are buying it from them. You are taking the time to repair it, and you are selling it to somebody else, a good home, someone who is going to appreciate it. So I think there's like, not only is it like a noble way to build a collection, but it's just so freaking cool. And I think if you're someone who's interested in that, you would learn like a lot. My other big tip was collecting with intentionality. Try to buy, you know, things not just to buy them, but buy them because you think you'll actually play them or enjoy them beyond just keeping them on a shelf. And of course, look beyond the most popular thing, which has been difficult for me. I love Pokemon games and I'm trying to catch them all. Literally, I'm trying to collect all the Pokemon games. And seeing the outrageous prices has stopped me from buying. I don't have them all yet because it's just like, whoa, why are these so expensive? Well, there's a whole generation of games that I've started to appreciate once again because I played more than Pokemon. I don't only play Pokemon. I don't only play Animal Crossing. I don't only play like one franchise. And so kind of opening my eyes up to the different collecting opportunities available to me has been a savings because I've been able to focus on that. I think for 2027, I might pivot from PlayStation to Xbox. I used to have a lot of Xbox and Xbox 360 games, and I don't have any Xbox hardware anymore. And I'm starting to miss those games too quite a bit. But again, I'm trying to pace myself, which is, I think, the biggest tip of all. I don't have to buy all the 360 games that I could possibly put on a list. I haven't even started to make the list because I don't want to focus on that. One thing at a time. You know, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of reasons to save money right now, but I think it's super, super, super important to have any kind of hobby, whether it's about collecting, you know, has a collecting focus or not, because you're able to unplug from the chaos of life and rebuild yourself mentally. And that is so, so important for every aspect of your life. Doing TikTok scrolling all day is not going to rebuild your brain. It's not going to make you feel good. You're going to feel like crap. I promise you that. But if you get into something like retro games or maybe collecting movies or whatever it might be, and you take the time to enjoy those things, you're going to just feel better. You're going to have the headspace to deal with all the other problems that the world is throwing at you. So I do think, at least for me, collecting games, quote unquote, because I talked about 7 games I want this year. I'm not the biggest collector, I guess, but these 7 games are probably going to give me hours and hours of reprieve from all the nonsense going on in life so that I can take those challenges head on. It's going to continue protecting my mental health. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to know why you're doing it. Let me know in the comments why you collect the things you collect or why you explore the hobbies you explore. And let me know how they're going for you. What are your goals for 2026? And that's about it. DualX, by the way, if you're watching this somehow, because I probably tag you or something, this is an open invite if you'd want to come on and talk about your PS2 collecting. But I just, that series has been so inspiring to me as well. I'm really, really appreciative for it because it's kind of set the stage for how I'm going to approach collecting games going into next year. So That's it. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you in the next episode of Sticker Shock. Thank you for listening to Sticker Shock Collector's Edition. You can learn more about this episode and our show by following us on Patreon. It's at patreon.com/stickershockpod, where you can subscribe for free to see our show notes and maybe any other images sent in by our guests featuring their collections, things like that. You can also find us on Blue Sky at Sticker Shock Pod as well. Our podcast artwork was created by Han and music by composer Cleo. We have new episodes every other week, so hopefully we'll catch you in the next one.